The Telegraph reported that foreign worker visas are set to double over the next 5 years for skilled jobs in occupations in which there are labour shortages, in spite of constant promises to bring down immigration. Why have the politicians lost control? This is no doubt being driven by a mixture of Treasury orthodoxy and the Office for Budget Responsibility. More immigration does mean more economic activity, which will be reflected in our GDP. But when you calculate it in terms of per capita GDP, it doesn't work out to be increasing. In Britain, there are more than 5 million people on out-of-work benefits, which is obviously a waste of their potential. And we don't need more migration to fill our labour market. We have millions of people who could be filling these jobs if we adjusted the incentives and helped them find opportunities. Well, my panel's with me to carry on this discussion, the editor of Conservative Home and former Tory MP Paul Goodman, and the former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider. Paul, come on, we promised in 2010, I hope you don't mind me saying we, because you're identifiable as a Tory, that we get down to the tens of thousands, and now we've got some document from the Home Office that's going to get it up to 500,000. This is ridiculous, isn't it? It's amateur hour.
Extremist, populist, reactionary, these are all words thrown at Conservative government since 2010, but actually the great unwritten secret of this government is it's running probably the most liberal immigration policy in recent years, possibly in history. I mean, after all, as you say, I left in 2010, you've been in Cabinet and you've seen it all happen. And I think the reason post-Brexit is Boris Johnson really had quite liberal instincts on migration. And then, you know, as you correctly said, he inherited a model of economic activity that very much is reliant on mass immigration, which we've had since the era of Tony Blair.
And James, I mean, the problem with mass migration is that it reduces the wages of the least well-off. It's fine for the highly paid, but it outcompetes those who are the poorest in society. Therefore, from a Labour point of view, isn't it something that should be brought under control?
Well, I think you're looking at it the wrong way round. I mean, in your setup for this piece, you said there are lots of people out of work, they need to be helped back into work. But the problem is that they're not. When you speak to employers, especially big employers in manufacturing, a thing that they often say is that workers aren't coming out out of school, out of education, with the skills that they need. So if you want to genuinely help those people into employment, then it's going to cost money. You have to give them the skills and the training and offer retraining and reskilling and lifelong education to people. And that's something which no one in the government has been remotely interested in doing. It's actually something that was a Labour policy when Jeremy Corbyn was leader, but otherwise it hasn't been. So rather than viewing this as there is this threat from outside, we have an issue that people in Britain are not being equipped in the way in which they should be.
OK, well, there's two things there. One is the literacy figures have gone shooting up. It's one of the successes of the government. And the other that Boris Johnson introduced and saw passed, the lifelong learning guarantee, which gives people a pot of money to retrain and re-educate when they're older. Both of these things are what you're asking for. So this is happening.
Well, it's clearly not happening in sufficiently large amounts.
I think my understanding is the lifelong guarantee hasn't come in yet. It will. It'll be very helpful. But I think there is a serious point here, which is that really you've got to look at it by sector. So, for example, if your complaint is in social care, we've become too reliant on people coming in from abroad to do the jobs, then actually, rather heretically, I agree with James. You have to take your domestic population, you have to train them up, and that will cost some money.
And you have to pay them more.
Yes.
But that also leads to innovation and to greater use of intelligence and automation, doesn't it?
Yes, I mean, the employers are reluctant to pay more, but the Treasury, and this is part of the point you made in your opening, they're reluctant to spend some of the money on the skills training that you need to spend. So there is this dilemma written into it that I think immigration is too high. Public polling does show that's generally the view, and seems pretty sensible. But you can't just wish it away. You have to have a plan to reduce it over time.
You can't do it faster than that, because these things are under the government's control. Can't you simply raise the threshold at which people can come in as being qualified?
Well, and that's the debate that's going on, as I understand it, between the Home Office and the Treasury. The Home Office and Suella Braverman are perpetually putting arguments to the Treasury like, why have we abandoned the requirement for firms to look for recruitment here first before applying abroad. And I think the Home Office has got a point.
And what would the Labour Party do? Would it carry on with mass migration before it managed to implement what you're suggesting? Or would it recognise how unpopular this is and do more than we've managed to do?
I mean, I'm not a spokesperson.
No, I know, but you know them quite well.
For the current Labour Party, who I imagine, judging by their current statements, would carry on a pretty similar policy to your government, which is to talk in occasionally really rather unpleasant ways, engage in a bit of victimisation of this group or that group, and do fundamentally very little along the lines that, you know, we're both able to agree on some of the things that should be done to boost the skills and earning capacity of people that are already here.
And are the small boats just a diversionary tactic? Because compared to the numbers coming in legally, the small boats are, if you'll excuse the pun, a drop in the ocean.
In terms of numbers, yes, but there's an important point of principle here, which is what I think gets your constituents and other people worked up, which is you either have borders or you don't. And a prerequisite of having a nation state is you have borders. So that's the reason why people get so worked up about it, even though the numbers are relatively small.